This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. My name is Shawn. I'm an innovation strategist. What we do is we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life. Oh, wow. Hey, everyone. My name is Shawn. This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. On this podcast, what we do is we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life, your career, your business, but really most importantly, your life. And this is one of my favorite episodes because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two of my favorite subjects on the planet, which is around disruption and AI. And what better way to start this podcast by talking about a subject that I actually have been talking about for over 10 years. Over 10 years. So I wrote an article 10 years ago. This is actually the only article that I ever wrote on Medium. This was July 26th, 2015. You can look this up on the interwebs. And the title of this Medium post was, "Is Radio Dead?" The one and only article that I ever wrote on Medium. And the punchline of this article was essentially saying, is this medium known as radio dead? And I start off by talking about how when I was 17 years old, the friends that I was with, they wanted to invest in Sirius satellite radio because they saw that it was a penny stock and it was going to blow up. And part of the reason why it was going to blow up was because of this is the new form of radio. And the reason why I wrote this article was I was still baffled 10 years ago as to why people listened to this medium known as radio, because you had not only Sirius satellite radio, but now you have YouTube and Apple Music and Spotify and podcasts and all these ways of getting your entertainment. And now, not only do we not listen to radio, but we just get our entertainment and media from all these different sources. And my belief is, even 10 years ago, that radio didn't just compete against other audio forms, but it competes against everything. And the reason why I'm bringing up this article, because in that article, I mentioned Howard Stern. I've been listening to Howard Stern for years, for decades. And it came out over the last couple of weeks that Howard Stern is essentially going to get canceled by Sirius XM radio. And his previous contract was $500 million for 5 years. This man was making almost $90 million a year from satellite Sirius radio. And what's remarkable is when you talk to young people about who Howard Stern is, most young people would have no idea who Howard Stern is. Neve, have you ever heard of Howard Stern? You've heard of him. Have you ever listened to a radio show? Never listened to a radio show of Howard Stern. Okay, I'm going to drop a podcast from The Breakfast Club with DJ Envy, Charlemagne the God, Jess Hilarious. I'm talking about Howard Stern, and let me riff on it for a second.
Howard Stern's show may not be returning only because he is at the end of his 5-year deal, and the amount of money, literally in the article they say the amount of money that he would want to renew a contract with Sirius, the Sirius that won't have it to give it to him. So in the article, one of the excerpts or quotes says, Stern's contract is up in the fall, and while Sirius is planning to make him an offer, they don't intend him to take it. They also say that.
Can you imagine you making so much money that the company knows, look, we can't afford to pay him that anymore, or afford to pay him anything more. So we know we're going to offer him, he's not going to take.
Right. And then, so another quote from the article says, Sirius and Stern are never going to meet on the money he is going to want. It's no longer worth the investment. Now, I don't think that it's no longer worth the investment. I think, like we just said, that they can't afford to do it. And then they mentioned Stephen Colbert, and they say, after you saw what happened with Stephen Colbert, it is likely they just can't afford to keep him going. Because there have been conversation about, CBS mentioned finances when Colbert's show was announced to be canceled coming up in May.
Howard Stern was making $100 million a year. I think he worked, 2 or 3 days a week?
$100 million a year.
2 or 3 days a week and didn't work in the summer? Wow, that was amazing. Drop a bomb for Howard Stern, man.
Hello?
But I mean, he was worth it though, because I mean, he put
Absolutely.
Sirius
100%.
Satellite Radio on the map.
Yeah,
and they gave him a whole bunch of stocks 20 years ago. Yeah, like he did. You probably wouldn't even know. Sirius Satellite Radio wouldn't have half of the success it's probably had if it wasn't for Howard Stern.
Mm-hmm.
Drop a clue bomb for that. This man, Howard Stern, was making $90 million a year for a show that essentially is like this. And the only difference between this and Howard Stern is the fact that, there's a little bit more staff and, it's a little bit longer. The reality is that he was doing a podcast. He was doing a video podcast. And the very idea that this would cost that much money is, ridiculous, absolutely fundamentally ridiculous. Now, let me give Howard Stern his flowers. Howard Stern is the greatest interviewer of all time. He is one of the people that actually revolutionized radio. And the massive irony of Howard Stern getting canceled by Sirius XM is this. Howard Stern, when he went to Sirius XM, it was a disruptive move because at that time, he was on a free station and he was going behind a paywall. And this was revolutionary at the time because why would somebody give up all these eyeballs and all this attention to go behind a paywall? It was disruptive at the time. People thought that no one would join Howard Stern when he was at Sirius Satellite Radio. And in fact, people did join him. In 2004, there was 700,000 subscribers to Sirius XM, and a couple years later, it went up 5x. There was like 4 million subscribers that joined Sirius because of Howard Stern. Sirius XM basically is Howard Stern. Howard Stern disrupted that entire medium, and he would always talk about the fact that he disrupted radio. But the irony is that over the last number of decades, he has slowly been irrelevant. And this is coming from someone that is a massive Howard Stern fan. The very idea that this guy who used to be the disruptor was fundamentally irrelevant in the eyes of everyone around the world is the story of disruption. The incumbent, the successor becomes so comfortable. They become so nostalgic about their previous business is that they can't see the disruption in front of them. That's why you see people like Joe Rogan, like Alex Cooper, all these podcasters that were able to clip up their stuff on Instagram and TikTok and other people clipping up them stuff, but more importantly, them being relevant on YouTube. This is why young people know who Joe Rogan and Alex Cooper and Andrew Schultz and Andrew Huberman. Like, people know who they are because they see them on YouTube. And so Howard Stern didn't see that disruption coming, that media was becoming increasingly more democratized. And actually, to be relevant, you have to be on the cutting edge. To be relevant, you have to go where people are watching. And that's the irony, is that Howard Stern, the original disruptor, and part of the reason why he left traditional radio was the FCC was on him. They were incredibly diligent in suing him, and not suing him, but fining him for all the outlandish things that he was saying on his show. And that's why he went behind a paywall, because now he could be more outlandish. And my belief is that he should have, when he saw people's pop off on YouTube and all these other platforms, TikTok and Instagram, he should have moved the show to those platforms as well in order to be more relevant. And unfortunately, he was not able to make the move. So it's wild to me. It's absolutely wild to me that you talk to anybody that is under the age of 35 and they will not have even heard of a show of Howard Stern, let alone even know who Howard Stern is, which is wild because he is the best interviewer of all time. He is someone that disrupted radio, but people don't know who he is because he wasn't nimble and flexible and enough to see what the future was going to look like. And that is sad. And my advice to anybody that is an incumbent, that is leading, it's like you always have to predict what's going to disrupt you. Otherwise, you're going to get disrupted. And absolutely, Joe Rogan, all these different podcasters disrupted Howard Stern. And you know what's interesting is that this next piece that I'm going to bring in is actually from a disruptor. And I'm going to try to mirror what Howard Stern did way back in 2004 to what this individual is doing now in 2025. So as context, Josh Johnson is a comedian. And what he's been doing over the last little bit has been actually incredible. And I'm inspired by, I don't even follow his content. I don't watch his specials that he's dropping on YouTube literally every week, every Tuesday. I don't watch his content. I'm just inspired by what he's doing because he's essentially been doing what I've been doing at a 10x level than what I'm doing. And I'm going to tie in the whole Howard Stern story with what Josh Johnson is doing. But this is a clip from the Colin and Samir show that I actually was listening to this morning with Josh Johnson. And I thought it was incredibly interesting. So let's drop the clip.
I think if you explore like what the format is and why it's native to YouTube actually is because it's like a riff or the real life performance of commentary YouTube. And commentary YouTube is huge, right? So Drew Gooden, Danny Gonzalez, like this crew of people who comment on current events and build like interesting takes and riffs. Curtis Connor is another great example. And a lot of those guys want to go into stand-up comedy because they're essentially writers, right? They're taking, like you riffed on the one man versus 100 gorillas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like a riff that a lot of commentary creators also like, they'll pull that in and they'll edit a video. But we always talk about like things that work on YouTube are familiar and unexpected. And of course, stand-up comedy is big across every platform. But I think what you're doing is taking stand-up comedy and commentary YouTube and being like, what if they were together? What if you watched commentary YouTube, but it was on stage? Because what the difference of what you're doing is that it's so current. Like when the tariffs hit, within 6 days, I'm watching a video of you on stage in a crowd talking about the thing that I heard about 3 days ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, that's an interesting way to put it. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way. Because to me, it's the intention is to both be talking about something current, but then blow it up to a place that is like evergreen or a thing that is like central to people. So something that is like more universal, you know, like all these politicians, all these topics will like come and go, but the things that they leave behind are like something distinctly human that you can be revisiting all the time, and it'll actually inform the next time something happens because you'll know what it felt like when this version of the thing happened. And even if they're not necessarily identical, I think if you can speak to something that's happening that's at the core of an issue or at the core of a person, you create a more universal experience for everybody watching that maybe not be familiar with this individual or this situation, but they're familiar with what it feels like to be in this thing that you're describing.
So let me describe what he's talking about. What he's doing, he's dropping basically his comedy set every week on YouTube. And yes, he's pulling in current events, but what he's trying to do is take that central theme and connect it to something that's more evergreen so that folks can have a deeper understanding of why this is important or relevant. I find incredible inspiration around this because this is something that I've been doing for years, which is this idea of taking something that's happening in the culture, taking something that's happening in the broader ecosystem and connecting it to something that's central, whether it's, me talking about on stage about the Colbert Show getting disrupted and what that means, or me talking about, a new study that came out with what Microsoft has done and the jobs, that they believe are going to be disrupted in the future. I'm trying to connect something that's happening in the culture with a central theme. So he's just doing it at a 10x level that I'm doing because I'm just dropping clips. He's dropping like full sets. And actually, that's my ambition moving forward, and that's why I'm dropping the clip. This is a reminder that I need to start working harder because he's certainly disrupting comedy. And to that point, Howard Stern, he disrupted radio, and I think what Josh Johnson is doing is actually doing what Howard Stern is doing in a more YouTube native format. The reason why Josh Johnson is popping off on YouTube and getting millions of views on every single video that he's dropping every single week is because he's doing what Howard Stern's doing. He's taking current events and he's commenting on it in a comedic way, but he's doing it in front of an audience and he's putting it on YouTube every single week. That's the difference between what Howard Stern and Josh Johnson. I mean, they're both doing the same thing. They're commenting on current events in a humorous way, an authentic way, in a genuine way. And that's why I love Howard Stern. But Josh Johnson is doing it in front of an audience on YouTube and dropping it every single week. And by the way, he's also clipping it up on IG and TikTok and other places. And other people are doing that too. So they're basically doing the same thing. And what's interesting is that Howard Stern, yes, was the original disruptor, but, slowly became irrelevant. What Josh Johnson is doing, he's disrupting comedy, right? He's disrupting comedy because traditionally as a stand-up comedian, what you would do is you would go to club to club to club. You would build up your particular sets, your jokes, and then ultimately, hopefully get a special at the end of it, right? And then you would have to restart. But what Josh Johnson is doing is that every time he goes on stage, every week, he's dropping a new set that he's essentially burning every single week. He's creating not something that is going to be seen in 2 years. He's doing something that's seen every single week. That is completely disruptive to what comedy is all about. And I think he's changing that entire medium. He's also, not waiting for someone to tap him on the shoulder, Amazon or HBO or Netflix. He doesn't need the gatekeepers, and he's going and building a direct audience with his fans. Now, what's interesting is that recently he has been helping to be a host on The Daily Show, which is a property started by Jon Stewart and then Trevor Noah, and now he's dropping it on there too, which is traditional media, and I think that's also helping his exposure at the end of the day. But I believe that The Daily Show needs Josh Johnson more than Josh Johnson needs The Daily Show, and that's the power shift, right? That's when you bet on yourself. That's the power of the creator economy, and this is the story of disruption. This is how you disrupt. You find a way to connect with people in a fundamentally new way, and maybe even a new medium, and that's what Josh Johnson is doing. And I find great inspiration from that, and I'm trying to do the same. Like, I am trying to put out more content that is more cutting edge, something that happened yesterday or a couple days before, and putting that out. And I don't think anybody is doing that right now in my particular field. So that is my competitive advantage right now too. And yeah, it's just fun to see people. It's fun to see people win. I love and do it in new ways. That's why I love this idea of innovation. That's why I love the idea of disruption, and that's why I fell in love with it. It's because it's so inspiring to see people continue to innovate, continue to find new ways of doing things, continue to find new audiences or disrupt business models, and he's certainly doing that. And it's also fun to see people get disrupted, and even people that I love, like Howard Stern, getting disrupted it's a beautiful story because it reminds us that we have to continuously stay relevant. So that's the story of disruption. Now, I'm going to bring in two clips related to artificial intelligence that are that juxtapose each other. And these are two individuals that are on the leading edge of what's happening around AI. So the first clip is from Mo Gawdat, who was on the Diary of CEO with Stephen Bartlett, talking about AI and the future impact to jobs, the future impact to industries. And Mo Gawdat is an incredible thinker. I remember we were on the same lineup at PCMA last year. He was opening the conference and I was the next day. And it was really interesting hearing about his viewpoint on AI. And I actually disagree with him on this particular take. And I'll tell you why I disagree with him, but let's drop the clip.
Name me one.
Name you one what?
Job.
Name you that's going to be created?
Yeah. One job that cannot be done by an AI.
Yeah.
Or a robot.
My girlfriend's breathwork retreat business, where she takes groups of women around the world. Her company's called Bali Breathwork.
Yeah, correct.
And there's going to be a greater demand for connection, human connection.
Correct. Keep going.
So
yes.
There's going to be more people doing community events, in real life festivals. I think we're going to see a huge surge in things like
everything that has to do with human connection.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm totally in with that. Okay. What's the percentage of that versus accountant?
It's a much smaller percentage for sure in terms of white collar jobs.
Right. Now, who does she sell to?
People with probably accountants or
Correct. She sells to people who earn money from their jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have two forces happening. One force is there are clear jobs that will be replaced. Video editor is going to be replaced.
Excuse me.
I love
Don't
you
take
guys,
that.
but
Fight
that's no, as a matter of fact, podcaster is going to be replaced.
No,
Not you.
Thank you for coming on today, Mo. It's been great seeing you again.
but the truth is, a lot. So you see, the best at any job will remain. The best software developer, the one that really knows architecture, knows technology, and so on, will stay.
This is what I disagree with Mo Gawdat on. It's this idea that he's challenging Stephen Bartlett to come up with new industries that will be created. And I disagree with him on a number of different fronts. Number one, we can't sit around and figure what industries will be relevant in the future. That is actually part of human history where we literally create new industries. We create new companies. We create new products. And part of the reason why we create new things is human beings are driven by status. And it has never happened. It has never happened in human history where we just sit back and be like, well, listen, we can't improve our status. We're going to sit back and just coast and relax and go fishing. It's never happened. We always look for those little crevices. We always look to improve our status. And the way that human beings have improved their status throughout history is they create new technologies, they create new industries, they create new ways of finding wealth. And it's just something that we can't predict. We can't sit around and predict what new industries are created yet because we haven't created it yet. And yet we have to be comfortable with the fact that we don't know. So that's number one. Number two is that he mentions the idea of accountants. Now, do I take offense to the fact that he's saying that there's going to be a decline in accountants? Personally, maybe because A, I have a CPA, B, my wife has a CPA, and C, my father had a CPA. So, it runs through my family. My belief is that the pie of accountants expands. I actually believe that there will be more accountants because there will be more things for accountants to do. I can't sit around and predict what accountants are going to be doing in the future, but the very idea that you won't have accountants because you're going to have more microtransactions, you're going to have more types of currencies, you're going to have, if you actually understand what accountant does, let's take one sliver of what an accountant does, which is audit. So in audit, what you essentially used to do, what I did, I mean, I remember this job clearly. We would go to a company and we would do an audit, which is basically trying to verify if their information is accurate and complete, and so that we can go back to their shareholders and say, actually, the things that they're saying around what they earn and what they owe is actually accurate. And what we would do as an accountant, we would take a sliver of their invoices or a sliver of their receipts and do an audit to verify if 1 out of the million transactions that I have actually mean what they say. Well, today, because of artificial intelligence, you can actually audit everything within their organization. And you don't have to do it every year. You can actually do it continuously. And having AI, auditors that are always on, that are 24/7, that are constantly observing, that are tracing, and having people, constantly help out with auditing and accounting, that's going to open up an entirely new industry. Not only that, but think about blockchain, think about crypto, think about ledgers. The whole idea of accounting was because of double entry bookkeeping was created. It was an incredible technology because now you can account for the assets and liabilities. And wait till you get and introduce blockchain and all these ways of tracking your transactions in a way that's more seamless and more verifiable and traceable. I mean, all this to say, my belief is that the accounting industry expands. And let me give you a example of disruption and how it can actually expand an industry. Let's look at photography. So when the smartphone came out and everybody in the world, literally everyone in the world has a smartphone, everyone can take a 4K picture on their phone. One would conclude that because everyone has a camera, that you would no longer have photographers, that you would no longer have videographers. But guess what? The market for photographers and videographers has expanded. This industry has exploded. There are more photographers and videographers than ever before, even though everyone on the planet has now become a photographer and a videographer. Why? Because when everyone can create a photo, the value of people that actually understand how to do this at a high level becomes more valuable. And now we create new ways of creating content. We create new industries. We have Instagrammers and podcasters and TikTokers, and the pie expands at the end of the day. So yes, disruption can take away jobs like Howard Stern, but I would argue that disruption also creates more Howard Sterns. Back in the days, you would have to get a broadcaster, you would have to get a radio station to stamp you and say, hey, you can be on the radio waves. But now, because of the internet, it has allowed anybody to have a voice. I am doing what basically Howard Stern is doing. Did the media industry destroy radio? Yes, but it also expanded the size of what media could look like. So will accounting get disrupted? Absolutely. Will the role of an accountant today fundamentally change? Absolutely. But the pie of what accounting is going to look like will fundamentally explode because more and more people will start to understand what accounting is all about. And people will demand more sophisticated accounting services moving forward, more sophisticated audit services moving forward, more sophisticated valuation services moving forward. And so I fundamentally disagree that we're just going to be sitting around and AI is going to do all this work and we're not going to be here doing anything. We're not going to have new jobs or industries. I don't believe that to be true. Now, if you are if you were listening to this podcast, for months and years, if you are in a role today and you're not including AI and you're just doing the same thing that you are doing over time, absolutely you're going to get disrupted. Your job is going to be obsolete based on what it is today. But if you incorporate AI in what you're doing, you're gonna be more relevant. And I think the thing that we always missed is that the idea that we live in a competitive environment. If you have AI and I have AI, if you have GPT-5 and I have GPT-5, guess what? If you have a superhero skill and I have a superhero skill and a superhero assistant and I do too, guess what? We are now at the same level. And by the way, I might need to hire somebody else. We live in a competitive environment, and yes, it's true that now we can all do way more with way less, but so will everyone else. So, we're going to create new industries because of it. The counter to Mo Gawdat is that Sam Altman was on the show with Chloe Abram earlier this week, talking about the impact of GPT-5. So GPT-5 is a new model that OpenAI created. And to me, the hottest take when it comes to GPT-5 is that literally they made this model free for everyone around the world. Meaning, if you have a smartphone, you can download ChatGPT and have access to GPT-5, this super intelligence, one of the most super intelligent assistants in your pocket. Someone would debate that Grok is better than GPT-5 or other. Who cares? You have the most super intelligent assistant in your pocket, and they've made this free for everyone around the world. What does this mean? It completely democratizes knowledge, research, and it allows everyone to have this assistant, and I think that's super disruptive. But anyways, to counter Mo Gawdat, Chloe Abram actually asked Sam Altman about the impact of jobs and essentially what does it mean to be a 22-year-old today? And this is what Sam Altman said.
If I were 22 right now and graduating college, I would feel like the luckiest kid in all of history.
Why?
Because there's never been a more amazing time to go create something totally new, to go invent something, to start a company, whatever it is. I think it is probably possible now to start a company that is a one-person company that will go on to be worth like more than $1 billion. And more importantly than that, deliver an amazing product and service to the world. And that is like a crazy thing. You have access to tools that can let you do what used to take teams of hundreds. And you just have to learn how to use these tools and come up with a great idea. And it's like quite amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible that we have all this leverage at our fingertips, that you can leverage all these different platforms and these AI agents to get something done as a 22-year-old. And if you are a 22-year-old with high agency, if you are someone that believes that you are an architect of your own outcomes, if you are someone that believes that you can actually make an impact, that you have more power than you've ever had in any time in human history, you can actually make something, create something that creates value for the world. And I think that's incredible. I think the punchline is that a 22-year-old with everything at their fingertips can actually create new industries, can create new companies, and can create value for the world. And that is in direct, based on what Mo Gawdat says, is that, what are we going to do? Like, you're going to have 22-year-olds that are going to figure it out and create new industries for us. Now, the only counter to Sam Altman is, the vast majority of people are not entrepreneurs. The vast majority of people are not wired this way. And my hope is that we can educate, that we can teach this entire generation to be builders, to be bold ones, to be innovators. Unfortunately, we live in a world where school is teaching kids about jobs that will no longer exist. We are teaching skills that are no longer relevant. And the skill that we need to be teaching is around innovating, being entrepreneurial, figuring things out, and creating these new industries that have never been created before. I get that that's hard to do. And maybe that's on the parents, or maybe that's on the individual to figure out. But the vast majority of people have not been trained that they can be an entrepreneur. And listen, when we go to school, they do have a major around entrepreneurship. But listen, most people, you know what they do? They take accounting, they take finance, they take marketing, they take international business, which you'll never find a job with. And they take all these traditional roles and functions, and we don't train them to become builders. And I think that's a massive opportunity. And of course, there are schools and institutions that are coming up that are training people to be builders, and that's great. We need more of them. But I think this is a mindset that we need to infuse in all young people today. Is like, how do you build? How do you create? How do you not be destined for the assembly line? That's more of a mindset that we need to build. And listen, not everyone's going to become an entrepreneur. Not everyone is going to go off and build stuff. I get it. Like, the vast majority of people won't. But what a great time to do that, right? Because you now have everything at your fingertips. And so I guess I wanted to end this podcast on a really positive note. I'm really bullish for where the future is going to go with AI. By the way, just a little bit on me and what I've been up to. So, it's the mid-August, summer's ahead of us. And I just finished my last keynote of the summer, on Sunday in Calgary. And I got to tell you about this keynote. It was obviously just, doing the 100 of these like every year. Some of them are incredibly memorable. This one was incredibly memorable because it was, I have never been mauled more at a keynote than this. I'm not really sure why, and this was like this was an insurance conference. But the amount of people that came up to me that want to take pictures, that want to say autographs, I was signing like kids, like autographs for kids there. I'm like, what is going on here? It's funny because Bad Films, Mo and Mazen at Bad Films were with me and they were taping it. Mo was like, he was like, this is insane what's happening. And it just is so cool to see how much a presentation on innovation. That whole presentation was all about innovation and how there's all these misconceptions around innovation and what innovation actually means. It's so cool to see a presentation like innovation really resonate with people and people wanting to be an innovator. Like, that's why I love this. I love putting out things in the world. And one of the things that I mentioned in the keynote was that, and I know I've been talking about this in the podcast too, was this idea of luck. And, there's an interesting piece of research that came out about 80 days ago about luck. And it really, in a scientific way, breaks down two mindsets. Number one, it's a type of individual that actually believes in luck in general, that believes that, that luck is just part of life. And then there's another group of individuals that believe that they're actually lucky people, that they manifest luck themselves. And in this study, these researchers gave 441 participants this match card this card matching game, which actually requires skill and luck. And what was really fascinating is that the people that were successful but that believed in luck just in general, they attributed their outcomes to just luck. But the people that believed that they were lucky attributed their success to both chance and luck. So, and I think the most interesting part of the study is they actually broke down the fact that people that just believe in luck, it actually gives them more emotional distress. They actually have negative emotions in general if they just believe in luck, if they just believe in fate or hope. But the people that believe that they are personally lucky live better lives. They have higher life satisfaction. So the punchline is that if you feel that your own agency, that your own contributions create more luck, you're going to be a happier person. And so I love this because I think that there's a lot of people, they believe in fate or hope or, that they're going to get a break. But the people that just like put in the work, they build a skill set, they put good things out in the universe, they believe that they are lucky and they live better lives. So it just pays to like bet on yourself, basically, at the end of the day. And this is like scientifically proven. So you can take a look at that piece of research. And I think people resonated with that particular comment, especially these individuals, because they were all lucky. I don't know what was going on. Anyways, we are going to be moving to a new studio very soon as well. And so it's not going to look like this. Hopefully it looks better. We're going to hope that it looks better. And my goal is to drop more of these podcasts before we move into that studio in the next month or so. Thank you for rocking with me.